are an open, welcoming community, celebrating our divinity, loving our humanity, and nurturing our journey of spiritual discovery. The foundation of our ministry is affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And there are a couple of ways you can take advantage of prayer support with our licensed professional practitioners. You can meet them in the Arches room after service off the main lobby, or submit a written prayer request in our prayer box next to the front door for the practitioners to hold in prayer throughout the week. And so, as we now ready ourselves to be in prayer together, I invite you to settle in, close your eyes, allow the centering music to connect you to that sacred space within, as our Leadership Council Vice President, Pat Weiniger, gives us today's reading, followed by Jim Ferris as our voice in prayer.
Every man is a doorway, as Emerson said, through which the infinite passes into the finite, through which God becomes man, through which the universal becomes individual. When Jesus said, "It is done unto you as you believe," he not only announced the law of faith, he explained how it works. First, he implied that there is a law which operates upon your faith. Jesus proclaimed a law of faith that acts on your belief. And now comes the more subtle and interesting part of this story, which perhaps you may not have analyzed. It is in this little word, as, that you are to consider the meaning of. Not only is there a law which does something for you, this is easy enough to accept, but in doing so, it is limited to your belief. And that is the important thing to remember. It is wonderful to know that your good is at hand. Your night wanes, your dawn is breaking. There is a living spirit at the center of your being. The original author of all life is in and around you. Not a God who was, but a God who is. This is the great secret which you share with life. Life is wherever you are. It revolves around you. It even flows through you. Keep the doorway open of your mind. Feeling, thinking, communing with its life. Know that it fills you with light and with power. Learn to exchange fears, doubts, and uncertainty for faith. Faith can make you whole. Faith can convert fear into certainty, poverty into riches, disease into health. Faith can lift you from a valley of despair into a mountain of hope and certainty. There is a power which flows out through your words of faith. There is a law of faith which has the power to bring into your life everything that you need. The greatest adventure of your life lies in your conscious use of this power. You need not believe in any particular religious system to discover your wellspring of life. You find it at the center of your own being.
Surrender. I surrender to the power and presence of God, to the power and glory of God within me. I surrender. the power and presence of God, to the power and glory of God within me.
There is one life in this universe. I recognize this divine presence in this sanctuary now. It is always present in my life and each person here. Awakening to that still small place within, I call forth the awareness of the Spirit of all life. This divine intelligence is the wholeness and unity of all that is. I sense its power, its presence, its perfection. I feel its infinite love radiating throughout my whole being. How awesome it is to know that this one life is my life. I know this divine presence overflows with abundant good and prosperity for myself and my spiritual community. I lovingly share in this infinite flow by giving and receiving freely. My life is so blessed, and so is the life of my spiritual community. I give thanks in advance for the information that is perfectly shared and appreciated in this gathering today. I am so grateful for the leaders of this center who lovingly serve in so many ways. And together we say, and so it is.
Now we are blessed to have two of our dynamic leadership council members bringing to us our talk today. We have Rob Beckman, who is our events chairman, and we have Sue Gardner, who is our secretary. They will be sharing a talk titled, How to Reverse Financial Adversity. And although today's talk is centered on reversing financial adversity, these same steps can be used to reverse any adverse situation. We frequently hear, focus on the solution and not the problem. And while that is a vital part of the process, it is not the process itself. So listen carefully as Rob and Sue break it down in greater detail during today's message.
Thank you. Good morning. As a member of the Leadership Council, I am so thrilled to be here. It's a real honor to stand before you, my tribe, and to talk about these things that I believe so strongly in, and to share them in hopefully in a unique fashion that will resonate with you as it resonates with me. Sue and I will be speaking today on reversing financial adversity in 3 parts. And those parts include reality, responsibility, and connecting with divine flow. As reference, I'll be using Eric Butterworth's book, Spiritual Economics. And starting with reality, we do live in a financial reality that sometimes feels as though it grips us around the throat. But the truth of the matter is that we do require goods and services in order to live, and a source of income to make that possible. So we live in a financial reality in a world that is an external condition. The external condition of economics, the GDP, the stock market, interest rates, and jobs, All of these things seem to swirl around us. As Eric Butterworth says in his book, Spiritual Economics, excuse me, the major items of discussion are job security, the deficit, interest rates, and the erosion of the value of the dollar, the price of food at the grocery store. And it's the consensus that something awful is always happening. If that something awful is always happening, it must be happening right here. Now, there was an article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal some years ago, and the headline read, "Positive thinking is the way out of our economic crisis." It went on to decry the excessive pessimism that is now engulfing us. It quoted the president of a large corporation as urging business leaders to adopt a more positive attitude, to help dispel fears of impending economic doom, and to restore confidence in the American people. It's easy to let such advice go right over our heads by just simply agreeing. Yes, that's something they should do. But we are the leaders of our business affairs, and as students of truth, every one of us, we should be the leader in conversation. Whenever the discussion turns to the high cost of things or the lagging business of your employer or the frightening cycles of inflation and recession, don't acquiesce in negative conclusions. Positively square ourselves on the side of prosperity and let something be good. Now, I know in 27 years that I've been doing religious science, we're now Center of Spiritual Livingists. In religious science, we do have our basis on affirmative prayer, and so much of that does feel like constantly looking at the good. But in fact, that is what it is, and it is so valid that in emphasizing a truth and a good, we have the ability to turn it over and to share it, see it and share it that way. I have a very dear friend who sees everything so brightly and so affirmatively. And sometimes I wonder what kind of planet this person might live on. But in fact, what I know is that the effect that it has on me, and that's my point, is the effect that that person's feelings and expressions have on me help me to see another positive attribute or a new side to any negative potential, and I'm very grateful for that. So we find ourselves at the mercy of these outside conditions, and we allow them to color our experiences. When what we can do is to choose to tune in with the divine law of prosperity consciousness, for it is the key to prosperity. The starting point in changing our life from financial reverses to an experience of abundance is the realization that you can change your life by changing your thoughts. You begin by taking responsibility for your own life. And as long as you are hung up on paranoid thoughts, such as, it's what they are doing, the IRS is after me, office politics, it's the government, it's the minister, any of these things that can lie on the beneath the surface and influence us in a way that is causing us to look outside of ourselves, then we'll never find any kind of truth. Admit to yourself that your present experience, even the condition of your bank account, reflects your present level of awareness. I am not the victim of circumstances. Consciousness creates circumstances, or at least sets the climate in which they happen. When you establish yourself in this awareness, then you are in a position to change things. And because if the effect is in you, in your level of consciousness, then the cure can be affected by changing your thoughts and altering your course. I spent most of my adult life as a hotel manager. I had the opportunity to live around the country running different hotels from budget to business to luxury, and I thought that would be my course and what I would be doing professionally for the rest of my life. In 2013, I found myself losing a job, being fired from a career that I thought embraced me as much as I embraced it. At the same time, I found myself leaving a long-term relationship and finding myself really floating alone and floating free, and knowing that this had the potential to be a turning point for me. So I'm going to share briefly my journey, but the important thing to remember is that each of us have this potentiality and this capability within us. So I suddenly found myself out of work and at home with the great luxury of having time. And one thing that I immediately realized is that I could do one of two things. I can sit at home watching Young and the Restless and eating bonbons, being depressed and being a victim, or I can make a list of things I want to do every day, things that will enhance my life, things that will deepen my spirituality, and things that will make me feel better about myself. As we all know, habits form from repeated action, so I found myself every day doing little things that made a difference: making my bed, feeding the chickens, feeding myself, and getting into a habit of positive reinforced activity. I thought I had lost my future. I thought I had lost my security. I find myself in middle age and starting over. But what I realized is that this was my opportunity to get good with myself. This was my opportunity to turn it around and to make it exactly what I wanted it to be. So I did. A list of daily things that focused on my well-being. I continued to pray. I've been doing religious science, as I say, for some time. Yoga, exercise, quiet time, journaling. I even went so far as to create a dream board, which, as you know, is when you take images and sayings that affirm things that you want. But that dream board turned into a dream room, and I covered 4 walls of a bedroom with my dreams and my realities, and I soaked in it, and there I was on unemployment, and really living from unemployment check to unemployment check. But bit by bit, to my happy surprise, my worries started to melt away. My understanding that I am perfect and whole and complete with the universe, and there is no separation at all. And I eased into a new way of thinking, a comfortable way of life, and I've never regretted any of it from there. I feel like now I'm in a greater place than ever. Life is fundamentally a matter of growing. It's a growing experience. Missing the mark is one of the ways that we can learn to hit the target. Failure is a vital part of achieving success. We have erroneously thought of success as getting there when, actually, success is earning the right to be there. Whatever the challenge, we need to refuse to be panic-stricken. Life hasn't ended for you. It flows on in a healing and prosperous stream. In the face of any challenge, we can affirm, I accept the reality of the situation, but not its permanence. The experience is there to be met. There is no use in hiding my head in the sand. However, determine that I will meet it on my terms. Don't let the outer happenings squeeze you into a box, but instead open your mind to the flow of wisdom and love and good judgment with which you can deal masterfully with it. It will come to pass. It has to come to pass. We know that as we impress in the universe, we get back. Accept it, but accept it as a changing experience that is on its way out. Something better is coming for you. So I believe that responsibility follows that reality. And that responsibility that I have to myself and that each one of us has to ourselves is to accept ourselves for the good people that we are, to accept the world that we live in, the personal world that we live in, as fine and rich and lush and beautiful. When my time alone and out of work finally came to an end, I found myself, as the universe would have it, working from a part-time job at a bookstore into a full-time job at that bookstore, where I now find myself, while making considerably less money, And I only say that because it's a fact, but it's a fact that people tend to dwell on. But I'm here to tell you that I have never been happier, because while I was a hotel manager and I was the greatest butler you've ever known, that I have turned a corner and I have found a new career in the second half of my life that is more satisfying than anything I've ever done before. And I hope that same thing for each of you, that as your clarity becomes greater and deeper, that you are able to hone in on those things that make you happy and do them. In the quest for solutions, we invariably look for help or advice, or help or a miracle from God. In other words, if we're looking for someone outside of us, even God, to shoulder the responsibility, it doesn't work. Seeing a challenge as a project, instead, you can tune into a whole different flow of consciousness. We're faced with opportunities to grow and can feel secure in the awareness that in the main, the answers will unfold from within. According to your thoughts, your faith, and your feelings, it will be done to you. All that really counts is what is happening within you, how you are reacting to the experience. What is your faith? Within you is a limitless, unborn potential of creativity and substance. The present experience can be your great opportunity to give birth to it. And thus, if you will, the tragedy can become a blessing, the disadvantage an advantage, the failure an opportunity, and a disappointment can become God's appointment. When you are grounded in the field of limitless substance, you may be broke, but you can never be poor. It's a marvelous awareness to hold to. You live in the wisdom and substance of infinite mind. You may be out of work, but you can never be out of the flow of creativity. You may have a difficulty, but you are forever one with the guiding light of spirit, by which you can go through the experience and ever grow through it. Finally, I share this with you. Pick the most difficult thing that you're facing right now and say, I know that this is the best thing that could ever happen to me. I know that in the happening, there is revealed a new lesson to learn and some growth to experience. I know that within me is an unborn possibility of limitless potentialities. And this is my opportunity to begin to give birth to new ideas, new strength, and new vision. I accept the reality of the difficulty, but not its permanence. I am not at the end of anything. I am simply between opportunities. I know that in the movement of it has come to pass, something wonderful is on its way to me, far surpassing anything that I have ever known before. Thank you.
Well, the first thing I want to say is, isn't he wonderful? Yeah, it's a real treat. We have a great council to work with. So, good morning, and I'm going to talk to you about accepting divine flow in reversing financial adversity. Now, compared to 27 years, I've been here about a year. So I'm going to start out and tell you a little bit about what that whole experience has been like for me. Until I found this spiritual center, I actually, and that's about a year ago, I was really on a constant search for something that was fulfilling and spoke to me directly. And when I was sitting out where you're sitting, I listened. I really listened, and I'm telling you, it felt different to me. So I decided to keep listening, and over and over. And at some point, I decided to take a class. Now, I'm going to give you an idea of how far away I was from fulfillment and direct spiritual communion on the first day of class. On the first day of class, I thought I was in graduate school. And I've been in graduate school, so I know what that feels like. But the reason this felt like graduate school is that the content of this spiritual class was at a level far above the consciousness where I had been. And yet, you know something? I could understand enough of it that I wanted more of it. So, lucky for me, it was a consciousness with a fairly simple and yet profound and dynamic structure. And there'll be many of you, probably most of you, that know I'm talking about the teaching model for the science of mind. And it turns out I like science. And so that drew me in. Science works for me. I like things that work together well and fit together and can be understood. And you can count on them working well together over and over and over. And I really like that. And I found it also appealing that this teaching model was available all over the world. Anyone can access it and learn how life works, how it works together. And if they take the time to learn how that model works, they can have it work for themselves. Now, more recently, a discovery of mine in the last few months in this teaching speaks to the goodness of spirit. And several people have talked about goodness, so I'm going to tell you what I went through here. Now, you'd think that over the last year, I would have picked up on this idea of goodness. But it takes me a while to trust big ideas like this. So it has only been recently that I've been asking myself if this goodness is for real. And if it is real, then it means that the creator of everything in the universe is good and creates goodness, unlimited goodness. Well, I had to pause and breathe for a while on that idea. It was an idea I knew might be possible. It was so vast and loving and beyond my usual thinking. And yet I thought it was possible. And if it turned out to be true, then every human being also has the option to choose to either accept such divine flow or not. So I decided to spend some time with this goodness idea. And I discovered when I intentionally looked around and observed, I found that beauty, love, peace, harmony, joy, compassion, and many other God qualities are involved in this goodness. So I really didn't mull it over too long. I mean, I just chose goodness. And in fact, I not only chose goodness, I chose to contribute to goodness, which is a big step for me. And I felt free immediately. I really felt free and more, I could breathe more easily. From there, I was able to move forward and let go of my old patterns and make room for the newness and the new consciousness and its divine flow. So that's my story up to now. And I'm still learning from many mentors, both here at the center and other places. For example, Eric Butterworth, which you were hearing here just a minute ago, explains in his book, Spiritual Economics, the word prosperity translates from a Latin root meaning according to hope, or to go forward hopefully. His view is that prosperity is not so much a condition in life as it is an attitude toward life. Maya Angelou, the renowned poet, says this about attitude. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And Jesus said, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Ernest Holmes notes that in these words from Jesus, he is uttering one of those deep truths that were so clear to him and that we are just beginning to see. Jesus knew that everything was made out of mind, and without positive acceptance on the part of the individual, there is no mold into which mind can pour itself forth into form. In the mind of God, there is the correct mold, the true knowing. In the mind of man, there is not always this true knowing. And since God can do for us only by doing through us, nothing can be done for us unless we are positively receptive. And when we realize the law and how it works, we can then provide that complete inner acceptance. And by doing so, we permit the Spirit to do the work, to make the gift. Holmes continues by saying, the reason we can make our requests known with thanksgiving is because we know from the beginning that we are to receive, and therefore we cannot help being thankful. This grateful attitude to the Spirit puts us in very close touch with power and adds much to the reality of the thing that we are dealing with. Without it, we can do but little. And finally, Holmes says, so let us cultivate all the gratitude that we can. In gratitude, we will send our thoughts out into the world, and as it comes back, it will come laden with the fruits of Spirit. The quotes I just read to you from Ernest Holmes are in the October 2017 Science of Mind magazine. In closing, I want to say it's been my honor to speak with you this morning and to serve on the Leadership Council here at the Center. Thank you.
You are so blessed to have this Leadership Council in service to this center. They are phenomenal, and it's my pleasure to work with them. I'm going to call the practitioners forward as we go into prayer. And we're going to use our Sacred Covenant Easy Prayer for the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living's new minister. This was created after our co-creation process. And it's not just about calling our new minister in from outside, but recognizing that new minister within each of us. Because that's where it starts. It starts within each of us. Because until we are it, we cannot call it in. So, you can read with me, or you can just simply sit in the words and let them resonate within you. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know I am one with all of its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community. Because I know the highest purpose of my new minister is to glorify God, I therefore know my new minister is a revelation of God as love. I further know my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God, for it is written, love points the way, the law makes the way possible. Love is harmonious, vital, and complete. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as the living, celebrating the power of love. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself, for I am centered in spirit, grounded in principle, and I am an authentic, engaging, inspiring communicator. I am awakened to and inspired by the wisdom within me. I am compassionately applying principles, revealing wholeness. I am experiencing, spirit in source and living principle generously. I am experiencing a direct connection with the divine and revealing its relevance in the world today through mystical teachings. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know it is revealed in a way that glorifies God, serves the highest and greatest good of all who touched by their presence. I am grateful God is gracious. Amen. And so it is. Thank you.